Look, I know they hate me. I know they hate me for what I did and how I did it. I understand that.
Imagine belonging to one of the most feared biker gangs in the world, but still having to look over your shoulder. Despite all of the tattoos and brutal reputation, the Hells Angels have faced enemies far scarier than rival bikers. Today, we're looking at the most dangerous people who became enemies of the Hells Angels. Chapter 1. Jbird Dobins.
My name is Jay Dobins. I'm a retired undercover federal agent, and I infiltrated the Hells Angels.
There is nothing more dangerous to an outlaw club than a traitor within. In the early 2000s, that traitor was an undercover ATF agent named Jbird Dobins. His assignment was to enter the Hells Angels during Operation Black Biscuit and gain their trust. At first, he was only an outsider watching from the edge, but the deeper he went, the more the club pushed him. They wanted proof that he was loyal. They wanted blood. The test came when the Angels told Dobins to kill a rival from the Mongols Motorcycle Club. It was the moment that would decide whether he would be seen as one of them or cast out as a fraud. Dobins turned to his team. Together, they staged a killing so convincing that it fooled the Angels. A man dressed in Mongol colors was covered with animal blood and butchered meat. Photos were taken of his body in a shallow grave. A bloody vest was mailed from Mexico, as if the murder had been carried out across the border. The Angels believed every word. In their eyes, he was now a man who had killed for the club. Doors that had always been closed opened to him. Meetings, secrets, plans. He was inside. What the Angels did not know was that every detail was being passed back to the ATF. The staged murder was more than theater. It was a key that unlocked indictments. Evidence flowed from Dobins to federal agents, drugs, weapons, violence, racketeering. The operation grew until prosecutors had enough to bring down dozens of members. For a moment, the Angels were not only exposed, they were vulnerable. But the success came with a cost. When his cover finally cracked, Dobins was no longer the trusted brother. He was the traitor. The club saw betrayal. To them, it was worse than a rival gang. It was poison from within. Dobins did not walk away clean. His family was threatened. His home was firebombed. Jbird Dobins proved that the most dangerous enemy of the Hells Angels was the man sitting at their table, the man who fooled them. And in the end, the story of his infiltration was not just about what it cost the Angels, it was about what it cost him and his family. Chapter 2. Officer David Miller. The Hells Angels have faced rivals for decades, but sometimes their most dangerous enemies come from men with a badge. In Colorado, a body camera revealed just how far that danger could go. Officer David Miller of the LaSalle Police Department pulled over Anthony Mills, a member of the Hells Angels, for speeding. It should have ended with a ticket. Instead, it became something far darker. Miller told fellow officers to switch off their cameras before they traded stories about violent encounters with the Hells Angels. But Miller forgot one important detail. His own body camera was still running. What it captured was not a routine stop. It was evidence of a threat. "If this guy does something I do not like," Miller joked, "I am shooting him. I need some paid vacation." The words were framed as humor. But for Anthony Mills, they carried the weight of life and death. Therefore, the Mills fought back through the courts. In 2022, he filed a lawsuit against 5 Colorado police agencies, accusing Miller and others of misconduct. The case dragged on for 2 years, but by 2024, the agencies settled. They paid Mills $25,000 and issued a public apology. Miller resigned from the force. The resignation was not only an admission of a career ended in disgrace, it was proof that words spoken in carelessness can have lasting consequences. Because the threat came from a police officer, not a rival biker, it reminded them that power in a uniform could be even more dangerous than a rival gang with a patch. Chapter 3. Hunter S. Thompson. Sometimes words cut deeper than blades. In the 1960s, a young journalist named Hunter S. Thompson stepped into the world of the Hells Angels. He was not a biker. He was not part of the brotherhood. He was a writer who wanted to understand the club and tell its story to the outside world. At first, the Angels welcomed him. They treated him as a curious outsider who could drink with them and ride beside them. Because he showed respect and did not judge them, they allowed him close. For months, he lived their life. He joined their runs, shared their parties, and watched their chaos up close. But Thompson was not just observing, he was taking notes. The Angels did not yet realize what that meant. Thompson was not there to glorify them. He was building a record of their violence, their crime, and their cruelty. He listened as they bragged about fights. He saw how women were treated. Because of that, the relationship turned sour. The breaking point came after months of riding with them. Thompson had become too honest. He spoke openly about the abuse he had seen, especially against women. He refused to turn a blind eye. That act of defiance sealed his fate. One night, the angels turned on him. He was beaten nearly to death by the same men who had once shared food and drink with him. The message was simple: words could get you killed. Therefore, when Thompson published his book, Hell's Angels, the strange and terrible saga of the outlaw motorcycle gangs. In 1966, the Angels saw it as a final betrayal. The book was a sensation. It showed readers the raw brutality of the club. It stripped away the myth and revealed the violence beneath the leather and patches. He had taken their secrets and turned them into a public spectacle. And for the Angels, the price of betrayal was blood. In their eyes, Thompson was no longer a writer. He was a traitor who had used their trust as a weapon against them. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who sits quietly, listens, and then tells the world what he has seen. His book made him a legend, but it also made him a permanent target of one of the most feared outlaw clubs in America. Chapter 4. Judge Samuel Conti. If the Angels had a king, it was Sonny Barger. But if Barger had an enemy, it was Judge Samuel Conti. In 1979 and 1980, Conti presided over a brutal racketeering trial targeting the Hells Angels. The case lasted 9 months, and because he refused to bend under pressure, federal marshals had to protect him and his family from threats. Conti was not content to be just the arbiter. He delivered sentences that struck at the club's heart, dismantling Barger's power in Oakland. Though the jury initially hung on many counts, Conti declared a mistrial in August 1980 and set a new date. The stakes could not have been higher. If the Angels escaped accountability, their violence would spread unchecked. Because Conti took no shortcuts, the Angels saw him as more than a judge. To Hell's Angels, he was an enemy who imposed order, but the power of his rulings made him a target. He was nicknamed Hanging Sam by critics for his tough sentencing, especially toward violent crime. He earned a reputation for being unwavering and for being one man who would stare down a club built on intimidation. Therefore, when the Angels plotted retaliation, they knew it would be costly, but the price was his resolve. The judgments from his bench weakened their structure and sent a message: no one is untouchable. For Barger, for the Angels, Conti represented the limit of power. Their rival in robes, not leather, who used sentences as his weapon. In the end, the clash between Barger and Conti became legendary in outlaw lore. It was not just a fight for legal dominance. It was a fight over whether the club itself would answer to the law. Judge Conti proved that even a king of the bikers could be forced to bend before the bench. Chapter 5. Anthony Tate. Anthony Tate was not just a patch holder in the Hells Angels. He became one of their greatest threats. In 1984, he volunteered to become a paid FBI informant while still holding a full patch in the Hells Angels. The dual life gave him access that few outsiders ever saw. Because he was trusted, he walked into leadership rooms wearing a hidden wire. He recorded meetings, drug deals, explosive plots, and violence planning. The tapes he supplied helped bring down top Angels. His work was critical in the federal case against Sonny Barger, as evidence from his recordings supported Barger's conviction for conspiracy to commit murder. Tate's infiltration fueled the broader Operation Cactus that led to sweeping raids across multiple states. In November 1987, these raids resulted in 38 arrests from Hells Angels chapters in Alaska and beyond. But betrayal comes at a price. The Angels hate traitors more than rivals. Once his role was exposed, his life changed forever. He could not return to the fold. He had become the enemy within. The club would never forget. Tate's brilliance lay not in violence, but in silence. Anthony Tate's legacy is not only in the indictments he helped unleash, But in the paranoia he planted deep within the Hells Angels, because one man dared to record, many fell. Chapter 6. Sergeant Detective Guy Ouellette. In the 2000s, the Hells Angels held sway over Montreal's streets, but one man stood against them. Sergeant Detective Guy Ouellette of the Quebec Provincial Police spent decades building a web of surveillance, wiretaps, and flipped bikers. He had no illusions. The Angels were powerful, but he believed knowledge could break them. Because he studied their structure, he knew how they operated. Ouellette became part of the Carcajou tactical team in 1995 during Quebec's biker war. He tracked alliances, watched who was rising, who was dropping, and who could be turned. He pushed through raids that shattered drug networks. He flipped insiders. He delivered evidence from the inner workings of the Angels' world. His depth of awareness was legendary. Within the SQ, he was considered a walking encyclopedia of biker politics. He did more than police. He became a Crown's witness in multiple trials. His testimony sent notorious bikers, including Maurice Mom Boucher, behind bars. In internal documents introduced at a 2002 trial, it was revealed that in 1999, the Hells Angels held a meeting specifically to plot ways to discredit him. They realized that Ouellette's evidence threatened their very survival. Because he refused to back down, the club watched him. His strategic mind let them move pieces on the board of biker crime that others could not see. Therefore, Ouellette's fight wasn't just about arresting members. It was about dismantling the myth of invulnerability that the Angels held over Quebec. Chapter 7. Joseph Bonavalanta. One man stood between Hells Angels and their wealth. That man was Joseph Bonavalanta, an FBI financial crimes agent whose target was not violence, it was dollars. He didn't chase guns or drugs. He followed paper trails. He tracked shell companies, offshore accounts, and wire transfers. He discovered laundering schemes tied to Angels chapters in New Jersey and beyond. Because the club relied on cash to fuel its power, attacking finances struck at its foundation. Under Bonavalanta's leadership, the Newark Division's Corporate Securities Fraud Squad brought major cases like Nevin Shapir, a billion-dollar Ponzi scheme tied to a University of Miami football booster, and Wise Guy Tickets, a computer intrusion case targeting Ticketmaster systems. He also oversaw Louis Berger Group, a $65 million corporate plea involving reconstruction contracts abroad. Those high-profile cases showed his reach, but he also turned his methods inward, tracing money that moved through Angels' shell fronts. As evidence grew, he helped choke off the club's ability to move cash freely. Convictions followed, banks froze accounts, and revenue streams stalled. The Angels saw that violence could be fought, but finances were a different war. Therefore, Bonavalanta became one of their deadliest foes. He didn't need to draw a gun. He used ledgers, subpoenas, and forensic accounting to dismantle operations. Chapter 8. Ali Osman.
Wir sind hier, wir bleiben hier und egal was passiert, egal wer schießt und bombt und macht und tut,
Yildiray Keimaz, also known by the alias Ali Osman, once claimed publicly that the rival Hells Angels MC in Duisburg would soon cease to exist. A bold threat from the head of Satudara Duisburg MC. He and his secretary, Baris Tate, were deeply involved in trafficking. Between May 2012 and April 2013, they orchestrated the importation of some 21 kilograms of marijuana and up to 2 kilograms of cocaine. But Keimaz's ambitions were not content with drugs. He and Tepe allegedly acquired war-grade weapons in the Netherlands, including an AK-74 rifle with 2 magazines and a cache of 1,130 rounds of ammunition. For Keimaz, this was a power play. He would be ready for war, not just trade. With that arsenal in hand, in August 2013, under his orders, a hand grenade was thrown at the Hells Angels clubhouse in Duisburg-Rheinhausen. And as if to send a message, another club member, supplied with a submachine gun, opened fire in a restaurant run by Hell's Angels. The public blast, the gunfire, the threat, all calculated to break the Hell's Angels' hold over the area. Because KMAS combined brazen public threats with real firepower, the stakes were high on both sides. The Angels could not appear weak, but escalating to war meant lives would be lost, allegiances tested, and law enforcement would close in more closely. Ultimately, law enforcement did act. During investigations, authorities discovered that KMAS had been arrested in April 2013. They searched his property and found a loaded assault rifle. He later cooperated with prosecutors under a witness rule, revealing the names of fellow members and providing testimony in court. The court in Duisburg convicted him, sentencing him to 6.5 years in prison for a string of offenses, including arms trafficking, drug dealing, and orchestrated attacks. But his sentence came only after he struck a deal, and even then, the memory of that grenade, that gunfire, and the public vow against the Angels would never fade. In the end, KMAS's strategy was bold. Provoke your enemy into overreaction, then survive by cooperation. But he gambled with lives, territory, and legacy. The Hells Angels did not forget the challenge, and the neighborhood would never forget the explosions and bullets. In that conflict, he became one of the most dangerous non-angel adversaries in their history. Chapter 9. Noel Harder. Harder grew up in Saskatoon under trauma and violence. His stepfather once shot his dog in front of him when he was only 4 years old. Later, after his older brother Donnie died swallowing a ruptured bag of cocaine, Noel stepped into the drug trade himself, rising quickly through Saskatchewan's underworld. He became one of the province's most prominent dealers, closely connected to the Fallen Saints Motorcycle Club, a Hells Angels support crew. By the early 2000s, Harder wore the Fallen Saints jacket proudly. He was trusted in meetings, in deals, and in biker circles. What no one knew was that police had already caught him with a stash of guns in his car and given him a choice: face prison or work for them. Harder agreed to cooperate. For months, he lived a double life. Outwardly, he was a senior Fallen Saint. Secretly, he was recording meetings, collecting evidence, and delivering intelligence that would cripple the Angels network. In January 2015, police launched Project Forseti, a wave of raids across Western Canada that seized hundreds of guns and more than $8 million worth of drugs. More than 20 men, Angels and Fallen Saints alike, were taken down. Harder was the key witness. His testimony sent shockwaves through the biker world. But betraying the Angels carried a price. A $2 million bounty was placed on his head. He and his family were placed in witness protection and relocated to safety outside of Canada. Yet officials later ejected him from the program, citing drug use and broken rules. Harder said the truth was more straightforward. He was no longer useful. What followed was a spiral. He was arrested again in Saskatoon with a loaded gun in his car, claiming he needed it for protection. He spent 743 days in solitary confinement awaiting trial, which is the United Nations definition of torture. When finally released, his health was broken. He admitted guilt to weapons charges but remained haunted by the choices he had made. Noel Harder passed away in early 2025 at the age of 43. At his funeral in Saskatoon, there was no police escort, no protection, no honor guard, and later became the central figure in the largest organized crime syndicate crime bust in Saskatchewan's history. To some, he was a master manipulator and a narcissist. To others, he was a man who gave the police the clearest window into the Hells Angels operations they had ever seen. For the Angels, he was worse than any rival patch. He was proof that betrayal from inside could be more dangerous than any outside enemy.